Hola chicos y chicas, how's it going? I hope you're doing good and welcome to my very first YouTube video. Well, actually first review video. There are already some videos out there, but please don't watch them, I beg you. I'm Andoli Lopez. I'm a freelance photographer and videographer from St. Gallen, Switzerland, and I'm doing this full time now since 6 years. Like, no idea how it works, but here we are, I guess. Yeah, and super stoked to talk about the LUMIX S1R Mark II. I've been working with this camera since 2 months now. LUMIX gave me this camera before release, so as an information, I was a LUMIX ambassador. Now I work really close with LUMIX together, provide them feedback, go to events, give workshops. Enough talking about myself, let's talk about the LUMIX S1R Mark II. But first, let's compare it to the OG S1R. There it is, the big boy. It's huge. As you can see, big size difference. It's also weight difference, like 250, 300 grams. Back in the days was one of the reasons I went with LUMIX was of the size and weight. Sounds strange, but this paired with full frame lenses is so well balanced. I could carry around the whole day without a problem, and I never had problems with my hands. In general, LUMIX cameras are so well built. Also, battery was huge back then. The top screen gone, no more. I missed this one. You could press this button here and then it would illuminate the back buttons. So if you're working at night and you can't see shit, it would make your life easier. Doesn't exist anymore. That's okay. Life goes on. So also no fan. The old one had no fan. Some buttons, button changes here and there. The screen, I really like the screen. I really like the screen. I'm getting nostalgia here, and I don't want to make a S1R review here. Really love this camera. So one of the biggest changes they made to the new S1R is the screen. It flips out in every direction, like the legs from my ex. I'm not the biggest fan of flippy screens, they're all right. I like working like this. I like this way more. I don't know, I like the screen to be in line with the lens. Also the silhouette is smaller than like this. Great to have, makes everybody happy, makes you happy, makes me happy. We're all happy. So we have a CF Express Type B card slot, SD card slot, which allows for fast writing, high codecs, full-size HDMI, which should be like normal in this price range. Telelamps are great. So the person in front of you sees when you're filming, when you're rolling. Record buttons. Like this record button here on front, like a great button to have if you have your camera rigged and you can't reach your top button. Also fan, built-in fan for not really unlimited record times. This is new for LUMIX, like not having everything unlimited, at least for the last cameras. I'm filming right now with the S5 Mark II X, which records and records and records until you die. Can't say the same about this camera, but more on that later. So built-in fan, splash, waterproof. No idea how they do it, but somehow it works. I had it out in the mountains, snow, also a bit of rain, and it works. Lock switch, this great addition. Like, it was already on the OG S1R. The lock switch, basically, you can program it for the needs you have. I programmed it the way that the touchscreen gets locked. So when I take pictures and my small nose hits the touchscreen, it doesn't change the autofocus points. I really like the joystick, big fan of it. It's like touching your own nipples, which is always great. Also, great new addition, but I'm like not 100% sure if I will use it the whole time, is shutter closing. Bam, closed, no more dust on the sensor. It's a great addition, but this is the shutter. And it's as sensitive as I am. I break easily, and so does the shutter. So I don't know if it's better to have dust on the sensor, which you can remove, and worst case you have some points on your pictures. I will use it, I think, if you're working and you don't have time and you need to change lenses pretty fast. Anything can happen. you know, so great feature, great addition. Of course, you can turn it on and off. If you want to use it, you can. Overall, I really love the design, how it feels great, well built. They rate it the same as the old S1R. So from -10 degrees up to 40 degrees Celsius. A great addition is the switch, photo, video, S&Q. This is an awesome addition because you can change pretty quick between photo and video mode. Also, then you have like 5 customizable buttons up here for hybrid shooters if you need to do photo and video on the same day and switch in between. This makes it so much easier. Thank God Lumix finally implemented this one. Like in general, I love how Lumix cameras feel. You take them in the hand, it just makes sense. Where the buttons are, like everything focus related is up here on your thumb. It's so intuitive to work with. I mean, you can customize nearly every single button. You can take this cam out of the box and you understand it. You get along with it. Battery grip. You can make this camera bigger if you want. You can more juice, something we will talk about later. Battery life also unlocks more options while recording with the SSD. I actually would love that Lumix makes a sports camera with the integrated battery grip. I really like this. A few words on lens selection because a lot has changed since 2019. Back in the days, Pepperidge Farm remembers, we had like 2.5 lenses to choose from Leica, Lumix and Sigma, which wasn't a lot, but now we have like over 100 lenses, which is great. The only thing missing are fast, sport and wildlife lenses, you know, 300, 2.8, 400, 2.8, that's missing. But Sigma just released a 300 to 600 f4, and I'm really looking forward to test that lens out on the S1R Mark II. Yes, you can, with an adapter, use Canon lenses, but I think the autofocus will not work really good. A lot has changed, and I think for every type of shooter there is a lens that fits, especially with, you know, SIRI with their great anamorphic lenses. So shout out to SIRI also for sending me these lenses. I've been working with these lenses since a year now. Fantastic lenses, really great value for like around $1,000. Makes my shitty clips look great. I'm gonna show some anamorphic footage later on because Lumix works fantastic with anamorphic lenses. How good is this camera for taking pictures? It's pretty amazing. It's the best photography camera Lumix has ever put out. And I'm really happy they went with the 44 megapixel sensor and not the 61 megapixel sensor. But first, an important question is, how do we label this camera? For me, it's a clear hybrid. I know every camera is somehow a hybrid, but a real hybrid is 50% photo, 50% video for me. It's not the best at both, but it's pretty good at both. And this camera is pretty good at both. It has its cons, but it also has its big positives. And this is important because if you label it as a video first camera, you probably will get disappointed in a few scenarios. If you label it as a photo first camera, the same. And I think Lumix changed the philosophy on the S1R, because this camera here, the old S1R, it was not good at video. And this is completely different. This is like 50-50. It feels so equal. It can do both really, really good. So as I said, this is a great tool for photography, really. And it's so much fun to use. And the most important thing, image quality. And yeah, it's 2025. Like, which camera doesn't have great image quality? I mean, images coming out of this cam, awesome. Like, I love the colors, great dynamic range, really great in low light. I had it in a few situations where it was like nearly dark and I had it at ISO, I think something around 50,000, something like that. And it happened out of a mistake because I had it on auto ISO and I normally don't do that. I like to have full control because I don't have full control over my life. So I like to have it at least over my camera. And yeah, colors. I always liked Lumix colors and I still do. And this is like a step further. It gets into Leica territory, and this could be because Lumix and Leica, they make out with each other a lot and they have a really deep connection. I mean, the lenses are Leica certified, so who knows? For me, like my favorite colors are Leica colors. Like I had the Leica SL2 for a while, worked with it, and amazing camera, amazing colors. And LUMIX with this camera, it's pretty close. And I know you can match every camera in post-production and nobody can tell you, oh, this is Leica, this is Sony, this is Nikon. It's with post-production, you can match most cameras. So let's get it out of the way. Dynamic range. I don't know how many stops it has, enough. But I really try to, get the pictures right out of camera. I don't push the shadows to infinity. I don't bring the highlights all the way down. I never had a situation where I didn't have enough dynamic range. Maybe it happened that I underexposed or overexposed a picture by maybe 1 or 2 stops, but that's not a problem for any camera nowadays. But if you wanna, push the shadows all the way up, you can do that for sure. Of course, there will be a bit of noise, a bit of grain, but that's to be expected if you do that. Awesome color science, great dynamic range, great in low light. Really, really happy with the image quality here, really. It checks all the boxes for me. I love looking at the pictures straight out of camera. The white balance is most of the times spot on. Also happy they went with a 44 megapixel sensor. I know some people maybe wish for more. For me, that's subjective. 44 is enough. Most of the times I work with 24 because like most of my pictures, they end up on a homepage, Instagram, Facebook, MySpace. Yeah, on posters, but not huge posters. So yeah. However, if you need more megapixels, there is a solution for it. This camera has a high resolution mode, like past LUMIX cameras. And this camera lets you create a whopping 177 or 88 megapixel picture. That's right, that's a lot. And what it does, it shifts the sensor 8 times, combines those pictures into one, and then you get that humongous file. It lets you choose if you want to, have it as a RAW file, RAW and JPEG, JPEG only, all in camera. So take your SD card out, put it into your computer, laptop, calculator, whatever, and you have the file ready, all stitched together, which is awesome. But there are a few buts, not my butt, mine is not trained. You need to use a tripod for it, and there is also a handheld mode. Well, I'm not quite sure if the handheld mode gives you the same result as the one if you do it on a tripod. From what I observed, it looks like less megapixel. So I would recommend always using it on a tripod. I need to do maybe some research on that one, but on the tripod, it always looked like way more detailed. Of course, if you have motion in your picture, that won't really work if it's too much motion. There is a mode to counteract those motions. However, small movements, like in landscape photography, which, mountains don't move that fast, and maybe somewhere you have a bird in the distance or clouds moving, that's not a problem. So something new, tethering with Capture One, finally. I think many people ask for it. I work with Lightroom and tether with Lightroom, more on that later, but for all the Capture One users, awesome. I'm thinking about trying Capture One. For the workflow, it's fantastic. The client can see how much my picture sucks instantly. So I downloaded Capture One and already used it a couple of times. And so far, I'm really, really happy how it works. So the first thing we do is, of course, plug in the camera via USB-C into the laptop, computer, whatever. Capture One detects it immediately. Like there's nothing you need to do. It already knows which camera it is. And the first thing I normally do is set up a folder where all the pictures go. You can give a name, like change the name of the file. This is great. And then, you're pretty much good to go. You have all the settings here, shutter, aperture, ISO, and also a couple more settings you can adjust. And now you can start shooting. Like from Capture One. Bam, bam, bam. And as you see, it's like more or less immediately in Capture One. Big plus for the workflow. And of course, you can also work from your camera. Good stuff. Also, you have live view. Then you can see what's going on in front of the camera. Also, good thing to have. Let's see how tethering works in Lightroom. For photographers who work directly with the client on set and the client wants to see how the pictures look like, this is great. Going back to Lightroom. If you want to tether with Lightroom, you need the LUMIX Tether app. First thing you want to do is open up the LUMIX Tether app and then plug in your camera. Let's see how long it takes. Takes a while. I have the settings for tethering. There you go. Here we are. So now this is the LUMIX Tether app. Here you can control your camera. Same as in Capture One, like change your aperture, shutter, ISO, all that stuff. So far, so good. So now we want the pictures to go into Lightroom. And this means we go to the settings. You want to set up a folder. Let's test tethering. We're going to create a folder here. Lightroom. There. So this is where all the pictures will go. There you go. We want the pictures in the card and also be saved on our SSD. This is good. All right. So now on Lightroom, you want to import them automatically. So we need to set up all in Lightroom here. We tell Lightroom which folder it should watch. Like it's this one, Lightroom here. This is where the Tether app sends all the pictures from the camera. All right. And then it will go to, let's also put it in this folder here. Create a new one. Call this test. Good. Create a folder which is called raw. We can also send it to a collection. Give it a name. Let's call it Lightroom test. There you go. All right. If I take a picture, we first see it, of course, in the LUMIX Tether app. And then we also see it in Lightroom. There you go. Tethering with Lightroom. As you can see, it takes a few seconds. Like, bam, one. It takes like 9 seconds to send the picture from your camera to Lightroom. That's a long time. Like compared to Capture One, can't even compare it. I don't know if this is a thing from Adobe or from LUMIX to implement it. Maybe Adobe says, hey, you need to sell so many cameras, so we implement this feature for your cameras. Maybe it's that, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure LUMIX is trying to get that into Lightroom as well. Change to Capture One, I don't know, or maybe just use it for tethering. Next photography topic, working with flash. LUMIX has made it better, but in my eyes, not where it should be. It is better for sure. Let me explain. So on older LUMIX cameras, the S1, S5, S5 Mark II, when you had the flash on it, worked with a remote, when you pressed the shutter, there was a really small delay, maybe 0.1 seconds. Really small, but you would notice it. And that's gone. That's fantastic. I got so used to it that now I miss it. No, I don't. Also, something I really missed was shooting in burst mode. You can shoot now in burst mode, but it does only like 3-4 frames per second. It's not a lot, but it's better than 1. And something super interesting I found out is if you don't put the transmitter or flash all the way onto the hot shoe, you get like 10 frames per second with flash, but you lose high-speed sync. Yeah, that's an interesting bug. With all LUMIX cameras, you put the flash on your camera, bam, go to burst, and then it would disable, would put a big X on it. It's a step in the right direction. I hoped for more. The things I do with flash are so in a most of the times controlled environment. I don't do a lot of events with flash, so maybe it's not that big of a deal, but it's important to know. The other thing is TTL. I'm not sure, but if you have a flash with TTL, the autofocus performance gets worse. I'm not sure, but it seems like it goes into DFD contrast only autofocus and loses phase detect autofocus. I'm not sure, but it seems like, because if I change to manual, boom, you have full autofocus performance back. And again, same as with Adobe. Is this a Godox problem? Because I work with Godox. Maybe it's not a problem with ProPhoto. Maybe those problems doesn't exist with ProPhoto, but with Godox, I'm broke. I don't have money for ProPhoto. This is, by the way, my go-to setup. Small, enough power, can give it to your helping hand, put an umbrella on it, works pretty good. Yeah, the Godox AD300 Pro. Great flash, really like it. I don't know if this is a problem on LUMIX side or Godox side. It is what it is. Flash works. It works better than on last models, but it's not quite there where it should be. It's not quite there where I hoped it would be. Next topic. Bursts. They bumped up those numbers quite a bit. Mechanical shutter, you get now up to 10 frames per second, blackout free, in 12-bit with continuous AF, which is great. On last LUMIX cameras, we had like 7 frames per second with continuous AF. It's not a lot. And 10 is also like not that much, but it's something you can definitely work with. I know it would be sweet to have something like 12 or maybe 14 with the mechanical shutter, but 10 is, I think it's a good spot to be in. I mean, until now I worked with 7 frames per second, and electronic shutter up to 40 frames per second, 12-bit, blackout free with continuous AF. That's a lot. But first the 12 and 14-bit. Like last month, everything I shot in burst was with 12-bit, and I never encountered a situation where I missed those 2 bits. I missed 2 brain cells more. If you expose the pictures correctly, you will be fine with 12-bit. The elephant in the room, 40 frames per second with the electronic shutter. It sounds great on paper, but I really hate to say it, because for what it's meant to do, it's nearly unusable. Let me explain. You can shoot up to 80 frames until the buffer gets full, and then it writes into the CF Express card. That process takes up to like 25 seconds. That's a long time. And I don't understand, because this camera can shoot ProRes RAW internally, which is a huge amount of data, but it doesn't, like the same rules don't apply to pictures, obviously. Maybe they can fix it via firmware, I don't know. The next thing, rolling shutter. A lot of people talked about rolling shutter in video. And I think for video, it's not that big of a deal. It's more a problem with photography. And this sensor reads with 20 milliseconds. It's not a stacked sensor. A stacked sensor reads out at like 2 or 3 milliseconds, super fast. So, I mean, a stacked sensor has its drawbacks, really small ones, think with image quality, but I worked with the S1R for a month and I never, thought the pictures look bad, you know? And also the price, stacked sensor makes the price go up. So maybe LUMIX said, hey, we want maximum image quality and keep a lower price. So this is the compromise they went for. But rolling shutter, wildlife could be a problem. Sports could be a problem. I would stick probably to 10 frames per second mechanical, which, does the job. And I wish they could maybe put in something like 20 frames per second, 30, 15, 10, 5. So you have options to choose from. That would be great. I would love to hear from LUMIX why it is how it is. Also, it's funny how it behaves when you shoot in 40 frames per second. Normally you do like small bursts, like, and you can't really do this with the electronic shutter. It feels like it's lagging. Doesn't behave how it should behave. I know how it is with other brands, where it's like super reactive, also added pre-burst in RAW. They already had pre-burst, but in JPEG, I think since the G9 Mark I, but in JPEG only. And now you have pre-burst in RAW with 0.5, 1 and 1.5 seconds, which is great. When you don't know when the action's gonna happen, just keep your finger half pressed down and it will take pictures and delete them on the go. So you won't miss the moment. Autofocus was the Achilles heel from Lumix for so many years. Since the LUMIX S1R Mark II, things changed. They implemented face detection autofocus for the first time, and they did a fantastic job there, and with firmware updates got better and better. And now with the S1R Mark II, it continues, it got even better. Yeah, so great job Lumix. It works great, really. For the last couple of months, I never had a problem with the autofocus. There was one moment where I filmed a bike rider, heavy backlight. It was an extreme situation. It struggled a little bit. Yeah, an extreme situation. I mean, you can make any focusing system break somewhere, somehow. Other than that, for all the action shots I did, super reliable. You know, I can set it to motorcycle, bicycle recognition. And whenever a bicycle rider comes into the frame, bam, snaps on it. And yeah, again and again and again. It's reliable. And that's the thing I want from a focusing system, is to be reliable. I know it works. So I have a lot of keepers, like more keepers than in the past with Lumix cameras. Same goes for like photography and videography. Also portraits, I did really good job there. Body face, eye detection works amazing. It's like when I'm doing a shooting, I forget about focusing. It just works now. It's so good. And no matter how the person is looking at you or not looking at you, if it recognizes the head, even if you're shooting from behind. Only complaint I have is I would love to have a box on the eye and not this cross thing. They have it with animals. You know, if you focus on animals, you get a box. I would love to have it for humans as well, a box. Please give humans a box. And talking about wildlife, I really want to use this camera for wildlife. Try it out with the new Sigma 300 to 600 f4. Because I think wildlife photography is maybe the hardest thing to photograph. It also has car, plane and train recognition. I like trains. And with cars, it does a pretty good job. I mean, cars are pretty big, so I hope the camera recognizes such a big subject. Yeah, I don't know how it is with trains or planes, but I can imagine it does a pretty good job there as well. There is one compromise with 4K 120. You lose subject recognition there. However, you still have face detect autofocus, but it will get a bit harder to track your subject. I will stick to manual focusing there. That's okay, I can live with it. If I shoot slow motion, it's always like, okay, I want this specific scene to be in slow motion. I don't run around all day and shoot 4K with 100 frames. I don't do that. I do it specifically. Okay, this scene, 4K, 100 frames. Focus there, bam, bada bing, bada boom. What happens if we put a monitor on this camera, in this case the Atomos Ninja? Some limitations, like in 8.1K you lose subject recognition, that's gone. Other than that, 4K, Cine 4K, 6.4K, those modes, you still have subject recognition like face, body, eye detection. It still works. Also, how the autofocus performs works pretty well. Like I didn't encounter any, you know, it jumps back to contrast DFD only. Most modes, it works pretty, like it works the same as without a monitor, so which is a good thing. The 4K 100 also loses subject detection. Final thoughts on autofocus. Lumix used to get so much hate for their autofocus performance. You know, on the S1R, S1, S1H. And I can understand, like, when it comes to video. I never used autofocus for video on old Lumix cameras. It was not reliable. For photography, I had such a different experience for photography. I think it worked pretty well, pretty good. The experience wasn't the greatest, yes. You looked through the viewfinder or on the LCD screen and you had that pulsing going on, which was distracting. But like in most cases, I would say 80% of the pictures I took with old Lumix cameras, the pictures were tech sharp. It was always like either tech sharp, and those few pictures that weren't in focus when I was shooting bursts were the focus would be somewhere in oblivion, like not even on the picture. Like, I mean, contrast gives you the precision. Face detection gives you the speed. And those two combined together are a match made in heaven. The stabilization, the IBIS on this camera. The IBIS in general from Lumix cameras cures my depression. When it comes to stills, it works fantastic. I get like 2 seconds out of hand at around 150 millimeters, which is awesome. Also, there is a tool called IS status scope. And what it does, it shows you how much you are shaking so you can counteract those movements. That tool, you could find the tool already in old Lumix cameras in the S1, so it exists for a really long time. How's the stabilization in video? Well, it's fantastic how we're used from Lumix cameras, no exception here. Normal stabilization in this body already works so good, like I wouldn't need more. And pair it up with a stabilized lens, and then the body and lens work together and you get even a better mechanical stabilization. So kudos to Lumix, it really works great. Fantastic job there. But wait, there's more. Brand new is a cropless E-stabilization. Means it doesn't crop in. Who would have thought? My interpretation is there are parts on the sensor at the edges and corners which aren't used. So the camera uses those parts of the sensor to stabilize. And what happens is you don't have the wobbly corners anymore, but you get a bit of vignetting, which is a good trade-off in my opinion. And also E-stabilization, you have a standard mode which crops in a little bit, and you have a high mode, crops a bit further. I don't know how much, but it, like, for the few times I use it, it didn't bother me. One mode that blows my mind is the Boost IS, and what it does is replicate a tripod. So let's say you forgot your tripod at home, you can put in Boost IS, and it's not meant for walking, it's meant for static shots, you don't move. And as you can see on this example, at 200 millimeters out of hand, it's stable. How? It's insane. I love using that mode, and I leave my tripod more at home, save weight, and have more room in my backpack for food, which is a good thing. Also, anamorphic stabilization. Lumix has, like, we get to anamorphic, more into detail with anamorphic later, but the stabilization for anamorphic is fantastic. Only thing missing is for 1.6 for the 0 lenses, but that's okay. Like, normally I put it on 1.5. It works good. Again, for me, in my eyes, class leading with stabilization, Lumix, so great job there. So now we arrived at the video part of this camera. There's so much to talk about what this camera has to offer when it comes to video. It's nuts. Simply amazing what Lumix is able to put in this camera. The amount of formats, recording options, it blows my mind, like really. And this is something that you somehow expect now from Lumix. Lumix is known for great video features, and this camera doesn't disappoint. Yeah, so the image quality out of this camera in video, fantastic, really, I love it. I put a lot on it and it already looks good. I'm not a color grader or anything, but I just love how it looks. I love the image. But this, again, same with photography. It's just a bit better somehow, but yeah, I can't explain it with numbers or anything, but just from my eyes. Maybe it's because most modes are oversampled from 8K, you know, the Cine 4K, the 4K, the 6.4K, all are oversampled from 8K, except the 4K 120. 4K 120 is line skipped. It takes a small hit at image quality. You notice it a little bit. It's still good, But when you have like a direct comparison to 4K or 6.4K, you will see a small difference. It's not a deal breaker for me, of course. Also, the flexibility you get with the files runs like butter on my, I work with an M1 Max, and so no problems there. Also shout out to the M1 Max, doesn't die. Most of the stuff I shoot in all intra if possible, a good in between ProRes and long GOP. I mean, yeah, some modes are restricted to long GOP, like 8.1K is restricted to long GOP. Still works pretty good in the post-production, no big problems there. Worst case, you can work with proxy files, and this camera can produce proxy files internally, so you have that option. So when talking about formats, you're able to record ProRes RAW internally on the CF Express Type B card. Not something I do. I don't work with RAW. I'm happy with, all intra files. Blackmagic RAW, B-RAW will be unlocked with a firmware update in the future, not internally on the Blackmagic recorder. Same as with past LUMIX cameras, you always had the option for ProRes RAW and B-RAW, which is great, which is awesome, so you can choose from. It would be awesome to have B-RAW in this camera because I work with DaVinci Resolve. Apple ProRes RAW and DaVinci doesn't work together. And who knows what's going on there, why that doesn't work. Please make it somehow happen, internal B-RAW. So there are so many recording options in this camera. Best thing you can do is go on the internet and take a look at the list. For me, there's nothing missing. I have everything I need. Thank God there is also a filtering option where you can search for your frame rates, resolution, and codecs you really need. And there is also the possibility to create your own list with your favorite recording options. The only thing which would be awesome would be 6.4K with 60 frames. As OpenGate 3:2 aspect ratio, 60 frames. That would be chef's kiss. My big question, will be there any crops? Because on the old LUMIX cameras with 4K 60, you had a small, it's a big crop actually, 1.5 time crop, which bothered me sometimes. I mean, you could work around, step back, change the lens, you had options. And with this camera, with 4K 60, 4K 120, you have a really small crop, like 1.1 times crop. So that's nothing, it doesn't bother me. Finally, I have a LUMIX camera with 4K 60 with nearly no crop and 4K 120. That's awesome, that's fantastic. One other recording format I really like is the 4.7K with the 4:3 aspect ratio. It crops in 1.5 times, but that mode is so great for social media content and 16:9 content. You can crop it easily to 16:9 or 4:5, so you have a lot of flexibility in post. Dynamic range. You have the option for dynamic range expansion, which gives you 1 stop more dynamic range. It goes from 13 to 14 stops of dynamic range, and I never used the dynamic range expansion. I don't know, like the normal dynamic range for me is enough. I'm not a heavy grader. I don't grade my videos too much, to be honest. I work in vlog 99% of the times. I didn't encounter a situation where I was like, oh, I need more dynamic range, and dynamic range, all good. So this is from a music video we shot a couple of weeks ago. As you can see, it's heavy backlit from an Aperture 600, and our main character is a silhouette, is nearly all black. So let's see how much we can recover from this file. Highlights, I mean, you can recover some stuff there, but there are some small parts that are totally gone. Nothing you can do there anymore. And the shadows, let's take a look at this face, if we will see his pretty face. And yeah, there are some parts coming out. As you can see, there is noise, but that's something I would never do. Like, I mean, if you play this now like this, you don't see it that much anymore. All the noise in the shadows. There it is. It's a pretty face. Yeah, but this is not the look I want, but just for seeing what we can do. Let's bring it back how it should be, like this. Yeah. So yeah, there's plenty of dynamic range to play with for me. Low light, same with photography. Low light is great on this camera for video as well. It has dual native ISO. The base ISO in Vlog is at 200 and then the second is at 1000. In low light, it's great. Again, here I can be at ISO 8000 and I don't care. It will look good. So that's what I want to know. How is it in the higher ISOs? And it's good in the high ISOs. I'm happy with it. And as a small information, I work with phantom LUTs most of the times with the Eastman LUT. I love that one. It just like put it on and gives you great results. This is something I love about LUMIX files, you know, the colors and everything. It's like the result you get straight out of cam. It's like, I look at it and feel like I don't need to do more. It looks already good. But yeah, using the right LUTs probably makes a huge difference, I can imagine. And I really like to know what a professional colorist, a professional grader can do with these files. And one feature I love so much about LUMIX cameras is the ability to shoot open gate 3:2 aspect ratio. And LUMIX cameras have it since many years in it. And it makes, like, I cannot imagine having a camera without open gate. A lot of jobs I do require for 16:9 and 9:16 or 4:5 output. With open gate 3:2 or 4:3, I can shoot the whole day like this and not to reshoot. We have a few options. We have 6.4K 3:2. In a future firmware update, there will be 8.1K. And as I said before, you have the option for 4:3 aspect ratio in 4.7K with the 1.5 time crop. So this camera for content creation, amazing. You have so much flexibility in post with the aspect ratios. It's great. You have the ability to put frame markers on your screen. You can see how the output in the specific aspect ratio is gonna be. Right now, there's only the possibility for one frame marker, but in a future firmware update, there will be the possibility for bringing up to 3 frame markers onto your screen, the same as we have with the S5 Mark II X or the S5 Mark II, the S9. So you can compose your shots way easier. You can record to an SSD with this camera. That's what I'm doing right now with the S5 Mark II X. I'm recording to a SanDisk 1TB SSD and I have like 12 hours, 12 minutes left. That's a lot. Like it's such a huge benefit to have that amount of space. There are more benefits to it, of course. Like one is heat dissipation. If you record internally to a CF Express card or SD card, you build up the heat inside of the camera. With an SSD, the heat goes out in the air. Price and what you get for, I mean, these CF Express cards are so expensive, or even SD cards, like compared to an SSD, like you can't even compare it. Like you get so much more with an SSD, and that is a good thing. Save money and spend it on something else, like cocaine. Empty 1TB SSD, you could take like 9,400 pictures, raw pictures, which is amazing for time-lapse photography. More on time-lapse later on. Yeah, so are there any caveats? Yes, there is one. Can't put a 4TB SSD on this camera. Like 2TB is the maximum that goes. If you want to unlock all recording options to an SSD, you need to put on the battery grip. There's no way around it. Like you have most recording options without the battery grip, but if you want to have it all, you need to put the battery grip on it. Another great addition is 32-bit float audio recording. All you need for that is the XLR2 adapter, a microphone of course. I have the Rode NT-G4 Plus and I'm really happy with that one. Put it on the hot shoe of the camera, plug the mic in, you're good to go. No need for leveling your audio, which makes it so easy. The most extreme situation I got in was while recording a band, Magma Ocean, check them out, fantastic band. Yeah, so I was standing in front of the drummer, and you can imagine how loud it is standing in front of a drummer who's playing. It's so loud, like 24-bit, you need to go so down with the leveling so it doesn't peak, but with 32-bit float, stand in front, do your thing, and you're good to go. 32-bit float, great addition. The only downside is, yeah, you have this guy up here, the camera gets bigger. If you would have a cage on this camera, you would need a different handle, so it gets over the adapter. Anamorphic support. LUMIX has by far the best anamorphic support from all the brands out there. In general, not only speaking from this camera, this small little camera here, the S9, which costs like $1,300, has better anamorphic features than some $5,000 cameras from the competition. As I said before, with stabilization, you get nearly all squeeze factors, and this camera can also internally de-squeeze the image so you can see how it is. 1.6 times squeeze factor is missing for me because I work with the S1R lenses here. Great lenses, by the way. Let's show them all. No need to be shy. Get in front of the camera. Oh, my OCD. These lenses are great. And now I can put on this one here. I'm good to go. I don't need a monitor to show me how it looks de-squeezed. I can de-squeeze it in the camera. So these lenses are great, the S1R lenses. I love them. Shout out to S1R for sending me these. Everything you're seeing right now is shot on these lenses here. Bang for your buck is amazing. As I said before, you can shoot open gate 3x2 with LUMIX cameras, which is fantastic and super helpful when shooting anamorphic. You have more height to work with, so you lose less material when compared to shooting 16:9. This works so well together, and yeah, it's a joy to use, really. Battery life, it's okay. It could be worse, it could be better. Compared to the S5 Mark II X, which is great battery life, this is a downgrade. On the S5 Mark II X, I could record for like 2 hours, something like that, before changing batteries. With this one, maybe a bit more than an hour. So it eats batteries. Yeah, you need to bring more batteries, bring a battery charger, maybe a generator, or just put on the battery grip. The battery grip is the solution for everything. It's our holy grail with the S1R Mark II. Put on the battery grip here, get more juice. It's a bit of a bummer because it's one thing that I need to worry about more now. The next hot topic, overheating. Can this camera overheat? Yes, it can. This is the first time in which I've been using LUMIX cameras where a camera can overheat. With the S5 Mark II, S5 Mark II X, the S1 never happened. And I had those cameras out in hot environments, recording over longer periods of time. The important question is, in which scenarios did I use this camera for video? I was filming outside in the forest, filming bicycle riders, sunny day, 18 degrees Celsius, you know, working in the sun, working in the shadows, and doing small takes of 4K 25, 4K 50, 4K 100, 6.4K, but always like for 10, 20 seconds, no long files. And temperature warning never popped up. I never saw it, and I had the thermal management set to standard. That's really good because that's what I do the most. Maybe doing the same thing out in the sun, 30 degrees somewhere, maybe that's a different story. And that's something I have now in the back of my mind, like because of the next example. Was a paid job, a live event, client with me. I'm saying those things because it puts pressure on me. We've been at the event, indoors, around 100 people, and I'm not sure if the AC was broken, but it was like 30 degrees Celsius. Filming for the whole day, and then during the afternoon, we were doing some small interviews with the participants there, around like every interview, like maybe 1, 2, 3 minutes. And for the whole day I was filming mostly in 6.4K. Yeah, so during one of the interviews, all of a sudden I see on the display A yellow sign, heat, it's getting hot. So I thought, awesome, I can cook enchiladas on this camera. And I had the thermal management set to standard. You're in the middle of an interview and you're like, oh, please don't overheat. I also had a good helping hand on that day. He was working with the S5 Mark II X and he never had any problems. After the sign showed up, I finished that interview. I set the thermal management to high. It never overheated. Didn't happen, but the sign would pop up every once in a while and it's a bit stressful. So I never thought that I will talk about rolling shutter, but here we are. I don't know what the numbers are on the other Lumix cameras for rolling shutter. Oh, I underexposed. Oh, I overexposed. Oh, it's not really in focus. Those are my concerns. But rolling shutter, it never was. And also with this camera, it's not a concern I have. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but like the clips you see right now, it's, moving action. If what you are capturing is engaging, then nobody will look at a tree in the background and think, oh no, rolling shutter. For the work I do, it's not a problem. So, and I think if it can handle bike riders, or fast panning movements, then it can handle a lot of things. Not a lot of people talk about is the amazing time-lapse implementation Lumix cameras have. Even though I don't use the function that much, I had some bigger projects where I had to do video, photo, and also time lapses, and to have it all in camera is great. I don't know, like every once in a while in my free time when I'm out there in the mountains, I like to do a time lapse, and just because it's so easy to do with this camera. You have a few options to customize your time lapse on Lumix cameras. You can set your start time. This is great if you don't want to start your time lapse right now. Let's say maybe in a few hours. You set it for the start time you want and you're good to go. Change your image count, the shooting interval to fully customize your time lapse. The holy grail, as time lapse photographers say, exposure leveling. This is a great tool because, as the name says, it adapts the exposure on the go while doing the time lapse. You need to set your camera to, auto ISO or shutter priority, so it can change some values there. What it does, it reduces, stuff like flickering, when you have bumps, when the shutter changes or the ISO, However, if you want to get the best out of your time-lapse, I highly recommend using LR Timelapse. It's a program you pay once for it and then it's yours forever, which helps a lot creating the best possible time-lapse you can create. Oh yeah, and after finishing your time-lapse, you can create in-camera a video, and where you can choose from 8K, 6K, 4K, also how many frames, and this is great. The videos you see right now is more or less straight out of camera. I did some grading in post. I think this is a tool which gets overlooked so much. But yeah, I understand not many people do time-lapse, but it's here, it's great, and it works. One thing I love about Lumix is the amount of features you have in these cameras. It's insane. Amazing features which make your life easier. Really. Every firmware update or every new camera, there comes something new which I'm like, oh, that's awesome. With the S1R Mark II, they introduced false color in the Lumix camera. False colors, most monitors can show false color. And what it does is it helps you to expose your picture right. There is even a chart in camera which helps you. So great addition. I also want to talk about other features you find in Lumix cameras, and also features that Lumix has since years in their cameras, which are super helpful. And even today you don't find in other brands. And one of my favorite features is shutter angle. Not shutter angels, they are somewhere out there doing good stuff, I hope. I can set my shutter angle to 180 degrees. In the morning, I don't need to worry about, setting the wrong shutter speed. No matter if I shoot 25 frames per second, 50 frames, 100, 1000, whatever, and it would always apply the right shutter speed. Not saying you should always use 180 degrees. You can also go to 240 or more if you want more blur in your videos. There's also synchro scan. So let's say indoors with lights, and yeah, you will have flickering probably. So you have synchro scan, and then you can increase or decrease your shutter angle until the flickering is gone. Yes, you can, at least with DaVinci Resolve, you can use deflicker, which works pretty good. But to have this in camera is, yeah, a great addition. So yeah, or things like waveforms. You can look at the waveform on the camera, on the screen. It takes some space on the screen, but it helps you so much exposing your image right. Or vector scopes. I don't use vector scopes, like never. Or the red frame. When you start recording video, it helps so much clearly see, okay, I'm recording. Timelapse, great addition. It also has a night mode. Nearly never use it. I'm not an astrophotographer, but if you are an astrophotographer and you're in the dark, you know a bright screen is not good, which you can turn on and off, and the light doesn't disturb your eyes that much. Small things like this that I appreciate so much about LUMIX cameras. So a feature I like is shear overlay. If you wanna, you know, create a picture with the same composition as a previous picture, you can load that picture onto your screen. Picture you load onto your screen has an opacity of, I don't know, 40–50%. The next picture you take, it helps you so much to create the same composition you had on the other picture. It works for photo and video. Also, you have multiple exposure back in this camera. I want to say that real quick. They took it away for the S5 Mark II, S5 Mark II X. On the S1R Mark II, multiple exposure is back. And yeah, of course, you also have bracketing in this camera. You know, those basic photography features, which are super helpful. With the release of the S1R Mark II, there also came the LUMIX Flow app. With the LUMIX Flow app, you are able to use your smartphone, and you can see it creates a black hole now probably. You can put your smartphone on your camera, plug it in with USB-C. You can use it as a monitor. You can change, you know, ISO, aperture, shutter angle, all those things on the camera. If you, I don't know, maybe don't have money for a monitor, or you're working with two cams and only have one monitor, you can use your smartphone as a monitor. Monitor. You can also create storyboards in the app. I didn't do that. Great addition. I think a lot of people will be happy to use the smartphone. Also, maybe if you do gimbal work, a smartphone is so much lighter than a monitor, which makes it easier, and you always have unfortunately, you always have your phone with you. So we also have Adobe Frame I/O integration. We already had this with the S5 Mark II. I never use it for work, but I tried it out and it works great. You need to connect your camera with your phone, and then of course you need an account on Adobe. You need to set everything up in camera. Once you set it up, while you're shooting, it transfers the pictures over your phone to the cloud. And let's say you have an editor back in the office, you can already start editing. This works with pictures, with RAW files and JPEGs, with video files, only with proxy files. As I've said before, you can create proxies in this camera, and you can send those proxies over Frame I/O to your editor, and he can start editing the videos. So you want to have what Fuji has with its film emulations? Well, LUMIX has you covered with the Realtime LUT. What you can do is load up to 39 LUTs into your camera and then start shooting, and you have your favorite LUT baked into the JPEG. You can shoot JPEG and RAW and still have the RAW untouched. So the RAW will stay a RAW file without any LUT over it. The JPEG, however, once the LUT is on it, it's baked into the file. So yeah, you need to, which obviously makes sense, you need to shoot in log, in vlog. This means that the base ISO, like the minimum ISO, you have is 200, you can't go lower. So if it's a super bright day and you're shooting with f1.4, maybe you need to use an ND filter. Yeah, so it's a great feature. You can also combine two LUTs together. I don't know what happens, maybe, I don't know, again, a black hole, but you can combine those LUTs to create your own. Also, with the LUMIX Lab app, how hard it is to say, LUMIX Lab app, you're able to download LUTs from other creators or upload your own LUTs, share LUTs. It's kind of like a small community, and you can also, with that app, you can connect easily your camera with your phone to transfer your files. And you know, this feature also comes in super handy when you, I don't know, you're on a job and you need to upload all the time during the shooting, and on the go you can provide finished pictures. You already have a LUT on it, and yeah, so makes working faster. Or maybe on vacation you don't want to edit your 10,000 pictures and you want to have them ready with the profile over it. So yeah, I think there are many scenarios where this is useful. The next step would be to take presets into the camera. That would be awesome. Before we wrap things up with a conclusion, one final thing I want to talk about: firmware updates. It's not camera related. This is LUMIX in general. LUMIX does maybe the best job out there with firmware updates, really. My old S1 there received, I think, 12 updates or something. That's nuts. I mean, this camera, the S1, how it was when it came out and how it is now, two completely different cameras. It received so many great features. Keeps your cameras feel new. Yeah, shout out to LUMIX. In conclusion, LUMIX has put out a fantastic camera here. Of course, with its downsides. But a question I always ask myself, who is this camera made for? And I think like it fits my situation pretty good. Of course, there are points that I wish were different. But overall, the last couple of months I worked with this camera. It was such a big joy to use, really. Yes, I had some cases where I got a bit angry, like with the 40 frames in electronic shutter and its caveats. Yes, I got nervous when it nearly overheated. Those are rare scenarios, which apply to full-on sport wildlife photographers who need a stacked sensor, a really fast camera, or, you know, wedding videographer who records over longer periods of time, maybe in the heat. So this camera is not for them, but it's a camera for many people, especially for the price, $3,300. Think about it for a moment, what this camera has inside of it for that price. It's actually insane. And that's something I want to say for LUMIX cameras in general. Bang for your buck. Yes, the thing with LUMIX is they're the underdogs, so they need to provide more for less money. That's how it is. But for $3,300, chapeau. And I'm really looking forward to work more with this camera because it's a joy to use, really. It's fun, it's intuitive. And that's one of the reasons why I started with photography, is fun. And LUMIX cameras are fun to use. When you're having fun, you're the best version of yourself. Now we're getting deep, huh? Yeah, and that's what LUMIX cameras are for me. Fun tools to use. I wish you an awesome day. And until next time, adios amigos.